initially I was thinking to let's say, work together through all my work related to waste, but then Yorgos cut me most of them because it was impossible what I was trying to present. And for this I will present a short version and we make a decision about what kind of presentation that could be more useful to present something related to waste social metabolism. So I will present also part of the methodology that I use and perhaps can be used by some of you in their research. So I will go, I will present quickly also because I mean Salvatore is already introducing the Campania case and probably will do through the 3 years. So I will just give you some initial information and how together with Mariana we wrote a paper, one that we published in Ecological Economics and was exactly, let's say, a sort of contextualization of waste conflict. Then I will focus on the waste metabolism, and I will present also the work that I'm trying to develop with Federico, also thanks to the good feedback that we received from the Master of Political Ecology, David Archie. But we can discuss about this together. I think it's useful. So some part is just general information, other part will be like methodological, and the other part is a sort of dialogue that I would like to develop with you as fellows. So this is my presentation. I will give you some definition that in some way drive my way of looking at waste conflict, sanction, motivation of my political ecology perspective. And then I will delineate a little bit this, let's say, dichotomic view on waste that we define together with Mariano a crisis of democracy more than a waste crisis. Then I will present deeply waste metabolism, what is it, I will present the methodology. And it is a biophysical perspective on waste metabolism because the feeling is, you can perceive this during the presentation, the discussion in our courses, there is a, let's say, a metaphysical approach to the metabolism and then a more biophysical approach to metabolism. I think we should combine both. No? So to conceptualize this idea of metabolism, but also to give some biophysical aspect of it. Because sometimes they have different kinds of information to our perspective. And then, in the last part will be the political economy drivers of unsustainable waste management. So you can understand that my entry, let's say in academic work was, okay, look at the two discursive approach, one that we can say the power discursive approach to the waste conflict, and then the bottom-up discursive. So how it was conflicting and why it clashed in a crisis of democracy. Then I start to look, okay, this is true, the activists are right, I'm part of the activists, so I'm right. But what about real flows of waste in Campania? No? There is a biophysical aspect, a biophysical contradiction, biophysical problem of this waste crisis. And then after I zoom out and I look at the drivers of the political economy, drivers of waste, waste modernization, let's say. No? So thanks to the work of Federico in Delhi, so let's say the world. If there is a voluntary to go to Bogota, we would like to have these three cases, to look at waste implementation in Naples, Delhi and Bogota. Nowadays we have just one person that is voluntary, but we are not yet with that. So definition. For me, political ecology is an interdisciplinary field that looks at environmental problems through the lens of actors in conflict over the distribution of benefits and costs emerging from social natural changes. So this is, let's say, the definition that drives my lens as a researcher. Then what is the assumption of my work? Now, the assumption is that the study of conflict implied understanding of the metabolic connection between the city, the countryside, and the bodies. And of course, I looked at this connection through the West conflict. You have joker politicians playing with the contamination mozzarella, you have Buffalo implying it, you have Shepherd going and demonstrating the city. So the connection is there. There is not this separation between rural and city. And this is very important, was part of our discussion. And I think it should be part of our assumption that this is clearly a clear interlinkage that we have. So what was the motivation? The motivation is that Campania, let's say the general motivation of the study, not my personal motivation, because my personal motivation is clear. I was an activist there. I lived 100 kilometers in terms of aid from the incineration plants. And of course I was involved in all the clashes and struggle in, let's say, political arena and in the street. So my motivation is clearly related to my biography. But you can have a motivation also, let's say, more general research motivation. And this is why, because Campania and Naples, starting from 2006 to 2007, became a sort of icon of waste mismanagement in Europe. Every kind of journal, newspaper were flooding and blogs and with articles about this mismanagement. But the idea is that still the information that was available cannot provide a deeper understanding, according to me, to the waste crisis. So this was the general motivation, part of my biographical motivation to push the studies forward. Okay, just to give you an idea where is Campania. It's in the south of Italy. It's the north of Africa, not the south of Europe. So this graph is not exactly. Okay. Then, as I said, I will just present what I published with Marianne in Ecological Economics article. And we were basically confronting two discursive narrative about waste. And we can say that, let's say, the political empowered people from the left to the right wing, because the first one in the photo on your right is a communist representative in the 80s, the most relevant communist representative. That became the great mayor of Naples for the La Rinascita of Naples. He really changed a lot of in Naples in the 90s when I was at the high school, but then became metabolized by the political setting, and so everything changed. And of course you have the big guys on his right, the environmental ministry, and the head of civil protection. That is a very, very interesting, but it will be completely another history. So these guys all agree, so through the scale of institution, from municipality to regional institution to national institution, all agree that on July 17th there was the end of the emergency crisis. And Berlusconi clearly said, because we cleaned the street. So the problem was for them, the streets are full of rubbish. Once that you clean it, you solve the problem. And more or less, to answer to why there was a crisis, they all answered in this way. There was an inefficient state apparatus that more or less are them. It's very interesting, obviously. Why you cannot run in waste management? Because we are inefficient, no? So why you want to still going on run the state? Then the inability of Campania residents to implement separation was solved. And then the fact that we were painting the international reputation of Italy. And it was like, no, it's a matter of reputation, not a matter of, let's say, bodies, cancer increasing, pollution of environment. It's just reputation. No? And this is very important because this kind of explanation is resonating also in the, let's say, very important, influential newspaper of international newspaper. No? You can have on one side New York Times saying a greater the solution is there, basically it's saying. No? It's greater recycling and the opening of several installations, new dumping sites. It's easy, but there are local people protested loudly. So the problem is not the mismanagement, it's that there are people that, let's say, for any reason they protested loudly because they are Napolitan, that we used to speak loudly. No? So there was this big problem. The big problem there for New York Times was this one. And it's a reasoning of the explanation that the Prime Minister, the regional government was saying. No? And economy is also reasoning more on this because then they link with this explanation for every problem in the south of Italy that is Camorra. No? More or less saying the same that the New York Times, but adding this aspect. Not only we as activists, we protest loudly, but we were manipulated by Camorra, by Camorra organizations. So even worse, no? As activists, you are not just delegitimized because you are just speaking loudly, so without contents. But you are orchestrated by Camorra. This was the explanation of economists. So I was trying to look at this kind of narrative, looking at the waste generation figures, the procedure of the tender. I hope that you at least browse the paper in ecological economics, and you can see that in each paragraph of it I try to give an explanation to this kind of aspect. So waste generation figures is really a problem. It's really true that we are separating less than other province or region in Italy. For example, we produce an higher value of waste per capita. Is it true or not? Then I look at the procedure of tender that was completely a mess for building and managing the waste treatment. Then I look at the siting of the waste treatment facility, how they decide to locate one of the facilities, what was the rationale of the location. Then I looked at the debate around the triangle of death, that is this triangle, it was a definition came out of epidemiologists looking at 3 cities, the area of these 3 cities that they call the triangle of death, because the incredible increasing of death cancer and morbidity in this area. And this is exactly the area in which they decide to locate most of the industrial facilities. Then I look at the relevance of subsidy for incineration. How was interesting for who was running the system, the importance of subsidies for the burning of the waste and so get paid for the production of energy. And then also to look at the consequence of illegal dumping of toxic waste. Look at this, I cannot show how I look at this. Again, I hope that you browse or you will browse in the future the article. I came to a different conclusion that more or less were more, let's say, close to the narrative of the activists, no? That the problem of waste disposal in Campania is not a problem, it's not a technical problem or economic and logistical mismanagement. It's not reducible to the inability of Campania citizens to deal with their own waste. And it's not a problem of Italy's reputation, of course, because there were implied a lot of, let's say, environmental problems, but also health. And we claim that policies based on this kind of assumption will increase the civil unrest. Indeed, when we wrote this paper, still the biggest clash between police and people were still there, waiting. So we were right, unfortunately, unluckily. So according to us, this kind of policies implementation, this narrative will increase the stifle civil unrest, and so change the waste crisis in a crisis of democracy because of the increasing use of violence and let's say the measure of the state of emergency. This is the general context, and now I will go a little bit in the urban waste metabolism. So the general assumption was, okay, we more or less give some idea in the first paper, in this confrontation narrative about the figures, but we didn't go deeply in it, no? So the second idea was, okay, go and look at the waste figures to really understand and explain the problem of waste mismanagement. There is a way to explain it or not. Because even if there was some hint about this aspect, still the figures of waste generation and disposal in the region was not purely analyzed so far. So now is it, because I did. So up to this moment, my let's say assumption and question was this one. No? I think that still there are not a good production. So let's say a little bit of theories, very little, but to clarify, the thermometabolism comes from physiology to indicate the process to which a living organism or system is responsible for its maintenance, reproduction and growth. So societal metabolism can be defined as the manner in which human societies organize their growing exchange of energy and materials with the environment. And so you have this kind of idea, no? You have a biophysical strand of working physiology, and then this coming of societal metabolism that in some ways using, let's say, the analysis of energy sector as it was the heart of the society. So the energy sector is pumping, let's say, the blood of our society to allow this society to survive. But also it means also simply to look at different kind of countries. No, you have more or less USA and China more or less has the same length, but completely different kind of population in terms of food consumption. You have 300 million people, mainly carnivores, as we was yesterday, and 1,300 million on the Chinese side that are mostly vegetarians. So how we can look at them in terms of this food metabolism, or this kind of different population. So Giacomo argued that represents society as a living organism. Ecological economics start to characterize the process of energy and material transformation of a society, essential to guarantee its continued existence as identity, as societal metabolism. No, and it's the same. If we look at different scale, no, because then I start to introduce the importance of the scale. We were looking at national scale, so USA and China, the metabolism at this scale, what allows this kind of society, different society, to have this kind of metabolism. But then we have also at household level. These are two cases of a consumption for 1 week of two different typology of household. And of course, for us will be interesting to look at. It was a project we cannot. I'm a little bit lazy, so I cannot do it. I have a lot of idea, but I never push it forward. But it will be nice to have this to outsource after with the waste production of this metabolism, right? If you look at the different kind of food that they are, how they are packed, and which kind of waste they produce, it will be interesting to have the same photo after the consumption. So now I jump a little bit in the methodology that I use. Of course, for societal metabolism, there are different kind of methodology, and I cannot enter in all of them in this 1 hour of discussion. I just can present one of these, and this I present it because it's the one that I'm using. So what I'm adding to this, let's say, methodology conflict of metabolism is, what I'm adding is the fact that up to now, no one was using this methodology for waste. So there was a lot of work, basically related to agriculture, societal metabolism of China, in England, energy issue for Catalonia, biofuel. Now there is still much more work using this methodology, but there was no one using this for waste metabolism. So at least I was trying also to test this methodology in the waste sector. And this just to give you an idea what is this idea of a multi-scale analysis. Normally we were thinking that, for example, because Spain is not so much productive as UK is. But if you scaling down to the sectors, you can see that we are speaking about economic labor productivity. In manufacturing, you can see that the productivity of Spain is the same of UK. So it's not true that they are more productive, that Anglo-Saxon people are more productive than the Spanish guy. It was a way in which you can present differently the economic aspect. But it was just to give you an idea of the fact that you can have an analysis at national scale, that you can scale down to sector, or you can scale down to the household level. It was related to the picture that I showed you before. So just to give you a hint of what you can do with the methodology. So what is the Museasem try to characterize the social metabolism in economic and biophysical terms. So using different kind of indicators, GDP or pollutants or labor productivity, and it's based on the idea of the bioeconomics ideas of Georges Reagan that divide or characterize the economics through the flow fund model that he was developing to present in biophysical terms the socio-economic process of production and consumption. So what is the fund variable? Just to clarify the fund, generally, because then you have to explain and you have to clarify the border of your system to clearly define then your fund. Because according to different kind of definition of your system, you can change the definition of the fund. I give you an example. Simple example, please. Come to my mind. Okay. Yeah, if I'm producing the eggs, the chicken are a fund for me. Okay. If I kill the chicken, I cannot have eggs. So if I destroy my system, I cannot have the flows. Okay. If I am a producer of meat, the chicken are a flows for me. This is important because it seems that there is an ontological representation of fund and flow, but it's not like this. It depends on the system. It depends on what you are looking for. It depends on the time spanning that you are using to frame your system that can change. Okay? This should be clear. I mean, there is a general definition of fund, but then still, what is really important is the board, how you define your system, what you want to look at, and then you can clearly define your fund and your flows. So in general terms, having said that, the fund variables is mainly interesting because it's what your system is. So let's say in the metaphysical term that we use to speak of societal metabolism is the identity. Now what is your system? Okay? It means that normally through your analysis is what will not change or you don't want to change. And this exactly, it represented the size of the system, defined the socio-economic process analyzed, and remained the same for the whole process. So 1 year of study, for 1 year for sure it will remain the same. But then can change. This is also related to another example, land. If you are looking at land uses, more or less 1 year will be, okay, this is the land use in my system. But of course, if you look at the same territory after 10 years, could be a different change of land uses. So could change your fund definition. Then the flow variables, of course, are energy, water, waste, new products. Define the elements that go through the system. They can change according to the accessibility of the stock as well as the technical capacity of the process. And this is important because what are saying in general terms, the flows to you is what the system does. So the function of the system. So the chicken are producing eggs. Okay, the factory is producing meat. So it's saying the flows are saying to you what the system is. What the system. The fund is saying to you what the system is, the identity, and the flows what the system does, so the function. Having said that, so general theory, I know it's a sketch and a hint to the methodology. I will go through my analysis. Then always, what I'm starting to learn as a fellow, so I advise to you to do this. Always clarify your assumption. Clarify your assumption related to your study, because then it's useful to develop the research, but it's also useful for you to, let's say, also to answer to some critics, because there is always a problem with your research. But if you are clear on your assumption, then you can say, okay, this is my assumption and I want to show different things. Of course, if you go and you want to open up the black box of my assumption, you can destroy all my research. And this is always, in each case, in most of cases, if you look at the assumption, it would be complicated, and then you start to give different answers. It was as the case of yesterday when we were speaking about the assumption that the neoliberal state has this function of capital circulation with shrinking of the state. Then you can say me, okay, why is it? But in this case, I don't want to show to you why is it, but I want to show what is the consequence of this state of affairs, let's say. So it's important to have a clear assumption, and you can also defend your thesis. So my assumption is that, as I said, the waste figures alone do not explain the problem of waste mismanagement in Campania. So I look at conventional indicator used in waste. So I look Campania, total amount of waste produced. We were not the worst. We were not the region that were producing more waste as total amount. Look at waste generated per capita. We are almost among the last cluster of region producing waste per capita. We don't produce so much waste per capita. Then separate collection. We were doing bad, but we are not worst still in Italy. There are 6 regions that are doing worse than us. And also related to waste disposed, Campania is not last one. It's not the first in the classification. There are regions that are disposing more waste than us. So look at the conventional indicator. There is no, and this is in some way is the first step to defend your assumption. No? I'm saying, okay, the actual figures of waste that are available for us cannot explain the biophysical root of our waste crisis. And I looked at all the conventional indicators that are normally used to start a model, to analyze the waste management, so on and so forth, and no one of these was saying that Campania was the worst. So for this reason, I applied this methodology to look at new indicators and try to understand if there were biophysical new indicators that could explain the, let's say, the biophysical root of the waste crisis. So grammar, in the sense that when you play with this methodology, you start to create your own grammar, a syntax, to make sense of what you are trying to say. So this is the second step. You look at the system, you define your border, and then you create your grammar. So we were looking at the flow variables as waste production or generation. You can call it waste generation, is more used, let's say, in waste management system. And this is the total amount of waste generated by the system. Then you have waste separate collection and waste disposed. Of course, the waste generation is the sum of waste separation collection and waste disposed. Then the fund variables in our case was the total human activity available in the region. So it's basically a simple multiplication. Is the population. You multiply the population for 24 hours and then for 365 days, and you have the total human activity in 1 year in your region. It's easy. I mean, all the multiplication are easy. No? This is very important because the conceptual root of this methodology is very complex, but the real application is very simple. If I can do it, you can do it without any problem. And then the colonized land, no? Which kind of land is available. It's a fund for my system because the land is important to locate the plants, no? The management facilities, landfills or incineration. So the land use, you cannot see well. Okay, the land use is one fund. It's not going to change in my analysis. So I define as the extension of the area of the system under analysis in square kilometer. So I was trying to complement the conventional indicator with new indicators. And so we came up with the waste production metabolic rate, which indicates the pace of waste production per hour of human activity. So you take waste production, you make a ratio with the human activity, total amount of human activity, you have waste production metabolic rate. It's easy. So again, VP. Then you have density of waste production, is the new indicator that we developed. And you can look at density of waste production in two ways. Now, as the ratio between flow fund, so density of waste production is equal to waste production divided by colonized land, or as a production between waste production metabolic rate and the density of human activity. Of course, what I was looking at was not density of waste production, so how many waste I produced for square kilometer. This is basically the idea, no? So it's a sort of density of population. Think about density of population. How many people live in this area? I was looking how many waste we produce in this area. So for me, it was like a biophysical pressure on the area. But what is really biophysical pressure is the waste disposed in this area. So what I was interested in was not waste generation, but the waste disposed for a square kilometer, which indicate the amount of waste disposed in landfill or through the incineration process per day in a given area. So I win finally. Campania is the first at regional level. So we let's say that the main problem is the fact that the Campania is the highest has the highest level of density of waste disposed in Italy for square kilometer. The density of waste that we dispose create probably the conflict, because if you have a great density, then you need land to dispose it, and probably this land is going to conflict with different kind of use of this land that was up to this moment. So in some way we are looking at this, and very high level is very important. But then again, you cannot do this just at regional level, because the museum is saying to you that the ecosystems are hierarchical and have different kind of emerging property at different scale. So you need to look at different scale to really give a general presentation of your work. So at regional level, we are saying, look, there is Campania. You can see in this map, Campania, Lazio and Liguria are the worst region in terms of density of waste disposed. And it was interesting because then we find that this region can experience difficulty in waste mismanagement. And we realize also that indeed there was a declaration of the Ministry of Environment in 2012 saying that Lazio, we published this in 2012, it's true, but I had the number 1 year or 2 years before, and I was saying Lazio is occurring a great problem because the density of waste is very high. And then in 2012, the Ministry of Environment was saying Lazio is risking a most severe problems with waste management than Naples. Then we represent this also because what we are arguing is not that now our indicators is explaining everything, but we are saying our indicators is a good complement of the conventional indicators. So we look at the 6, so let's say the 4 conventional indicators, more adding our 2 indicators to look at different, for example, region. The red zone is where you are doing bumping, where you are managing. Your indicator is signaling something that is bad, and when you are in the green one, the benchmark is positive, that you are doing good, or you don't risk for this indicator. So you can have representation of all the indicators. You can see Lombardia is the worst one for total waste, but of course Campania then is the worst one for density of waste. And according to waste conflict, for us is more relevant density of waste that you are disposing than the total amount that you are generating. So complementary representation, and it allows in a single view the most problematic indicators for different kind of region. Then we scaling down to provincial level, and what we find was that not only Naples was the worst one, but the second worst province in Italy, that was Milan, in terms of density of waste disposed, was 3 times less than the density that we produce in Naples. So you can understand that the density of disposed waste in Naples is really a strong indicator of the problematics there. But still, we also find out that Milan was experiencing, because of density of waste, in the 90s we experienced a waste crisis. And there is a document of the deputy camera, this is one of our camera in Italy, saying this, discussing about the waste crisis in Milan in the 90s. So again, we have a confirmation that our indicators were predicting or is describing something that was happening that up to now was not able to be conventional indicator. Then we went and our
15 minutes
still.
or 15 minutes if you want to talk about that.
Then we went to municipality level. So we did this analysis for the 550 municipality of Campania, and we mapped it. And as you can see, I mean, of course, the green one are, let's say, where are the municipalities in which the density is low, and then you have the red one, that's Naples, and let's say the metropolitan area of Naples, that where you have a high level of density. And this is very important because you know the vanities of this value are amazing. You can go from a 2 kilograms per day for square kilometer, no? Like Tortorella, the municipality in the province of Salerno, is disposing 2 kilograms per day for square kilometer. And then you go in Frattaminore, that is in the province of Naples, where you have 80,000 kilograms per day. So you can realize the heterogeneity of this. And you cannot look at this heterogeneity looking at the normal and conventional waste indicator. This is also the powerfulness, the powerful of these indicators. Now the fact that you can show the great heterogeneity through the scale and the same scale among municipalities. No? This is a clear point for us, because then you declare a whole region in waste emergency when there are 95% of municipalities that are doing well, that they are doing the waste management in a proper way. They have no problem, but you force them in the same waste emergency, in the state of emergency through the commission. And why is it? No. This is completely stupid from a management point of view, because probably if you don't put this in a state emergency all the municipalities that are doing well in the management of waste, then the help that they can do, that they can give to the other municipalities could be better, no? Then look at these indicators. We also realize that the target of the European Commission are completely unuseful, I would say. So that this fact that we think that is good, that we have this high level of recycling rates, 65% for 2012 and so on and so forth. And this indicator is trying to show that it's not like this that should work, the biophysical approach to waste management. Because in Europe you have this heterogeneity. So this heterogeneity, why Tortorella, that is producing 2 kilograms per day for square kilometer, should reach 65% of what is the biophysical explanation? I mean, this is complete normative state, no? And the other way around that is more problematic is, even if Naples reached the target, we didn't reach the target, okay? But we did a sort of projection looking at density of waste production reaching the target for 2012, so implementing a separate collection like crazy. So all the people of Naples were doing just this, separate collection of their waste. If we reach 65%, we still have the density of waste production highest in Italy. So for us, this target doesn't say anything. So if we are, let's say, respecting the law, we still have a problem in terms of waste management. So we were arguing that probably in the future the target for the waste separation or recycled waste should be related to biophysical characterization of the area, and not to a normative environmentalist, supposedly environmentalist approach to the data. So we reached, according to us, two double goals. I developed this work with, basically with Federica, that is a colleague of us working at Bilbao, and also I published the paper with Mario Giampietro, that is the Homo sapiens of the methodology, let's say, the tutoralist. So we reached double goals, according to us. Describe in a more exhaustive way the number that underpin the Campania crisis, and create a set of indicators complementary to the conventional one, showing the characteristic of waste metabolism in other contexts. So we think that first, In specific case, we are giving more information, so are useful for our case, but also we think that also because we have these comparative studies with all the region, 20 region of Italy, 100 province, 550 municipalities. So the database is already saying to us something about the characteristics of waste metabolism in other contexts, apart of Campania. So then, in general, the conclusion is the crisis Campania is being due mainly to the waste producer managed in some part of the province of Naples, as the last graph and maps show you, no? The red Naples and the orange area around Naples. Thus, a monoscaling institutional solution on the waste crisis, so this implementing of the waste commissioner for all the region does help to develop a sustainable practices. So the waste conflict is not detected by conventional indicator. Going on using only such indicator for waste management plans cannot guarantee that social sustainability, because this can create clash in the society. And then imposing a purely normative stance or separate collection does not take in consideration the heterogeneities of European territories. Well, last part, there are 3 slides, I think I have no? 5 minutes.
No, 10 minutes.
So I close this part about waste metabolism. I hope that I pass some theories, some methodology, some application, and also how you can generalize your results to be relevant in terms of research that you are proposing. Now, as I said at the beginning, I zoom out of the case of Campania. Together with Federico, we are trying to look at the general dynamic of waste management all around the world, basically in Delhi and in Naples, but also looking at, probably not without field work, but we were looking at the policies in Bogota. So we want to look at the political economic drivers of the unsustainability of this kind of waste management. And so our main contribution will be this theoretical contribution to this accumulation by contamination. So the motivation, the motivation that you have is to study the political economic dynamics of societal metabolism according to the trend of studies of Martinez Xavier and capitalism, let's say, in which harvest one of the main references. Through the lens of environmental conflict. There is the main contribution of Marco Armiero looking and studying the environmental conflict historically, and also in the case of waste that we published together. So we have these 2 theoretical roots, and for us it's very important. I think this is, I put this slide because the first part should be the key objective of you. We have to reinforce our political ecology perspective. I think that we have to try to bring together the societal metabolism in terms of accounting and ecological distribution conflict, together with capitalism and neoliberalism theory. This will be our strength in 5 years, and we will hegemonize some place in departments of university. Otherwise, we cannot do it. But you have to work hard not to do this. It's a long step forward. But I think this is part of our objective. And we, with Federico, we are trying to do this, of course, looking at our, let's say, obsession that is waste. So looking at waste conflict, we have experience in this field, so through waste conflict we try to put together this kind of theories. And I think this is also a very important aspect of our study, because we think, and we share with Federico, and I don't know, probably we can discuss about this, that also a good theoretical contribution is not pure production. We as a singular intellectual, we cannot produce new ideas from nothing. In this terms, some general idea of thermodynamics, right? You cannot produce nothing from nothing. But if you look at the real process of struggle in your case studies, then the role of as intellectual is to look at the theoretical contribution. That the reality is already expressing. You are not inventing nothing. The reality is expressing what you are trying to, let's say, theorize in a better way and pass through your specific case. This is the main role. No? I think that without la commune de Paris, Marx cannot write the Capitals. There is no way. I mean, the real events explain good theoretical contribution. So don't be too narcissistic and think that you are the best person in the world. Just go in the case studies, look your studies and try to understand the realities. And the realities, then your contribution, your eureka activity is to theorize it in the best way possible. This is hard. Why I put this slide? I don't know. It's crazy. Okay. As we know, Harvey developed this idea of accumulation by dispossession looking at the primitive accumulation idea of Marx. That is, the primitive accumulation was the idea for Marx to, let's say, that was the starting point of the cycle of accumulation. Because he was describing in 23 chapters the cycle of accumulation. But then you have the 24 chapters saying, okay, but how it starts, right? How this cycle starts. And he said, okay, it's the primitive accumulation. This is the starting point of the capitalist process of accumulation. And then, of course, there is a lot of literature related to what is it really? No? It's a historical moment that Marx was describing, or it's a continuous process. So on one side, you have, let's say, Lenin, Dobb, Swilzy, is saying that primitive accumulation is a historical moment, it's a precondition of a capitalist mode of production. And then on the other side, you have Rosa Luxemburg, you have Amin, that is an inherent continuous primitive accumulation for them. According to them, Marx was already saying this. He was giving example and in to understand that it was not an historical moment, but it was an inherent continuous pattern. So continuous phenomenon within the capitalist mode of production. And according, let's say that De Angelis tried to synthesize this struggle between Marxists in a paper that is very interesting, so I really invite you to read it. In which he say, if you look at the real central concept for Marx, you can understand that this an inherent continuous was an historical precondition, but it's also inherent. So it is an event that continuously going on. So what is this concept? Is the separation. Marx used this idea of separation between laborers and means of production. This is the real key word. So starting from this idea of separation, key terms, we try to define, because I mean David Harvey never defined clearly and properly. I think accumulation by disposition. If you read the book, the chapter, I mean there is examples, but you don't have. I mean it's clear. No? I have to do this because I'm not a big scholar, so I have to clarify my definition continuously. You can do it, so it's clear. But then when we use it, we have to try to clarify what these big intellectuals are trying to say. No? And so we're struggling. So how we can really define accumulation by disposition? And we tried it, and we did, let's say, 70% right. And then in the discussion that we had with Harvey, he added another part of our definition. No? So now we have the definition of accumulation by disposition. So there's two let's say, two parts of the accumulation by dispossession. Why accumulation by dispossession is saying something more than primitive accumulation? Because there is the first part is related to separation. So accumulation by dispossession is the inherent necessity for the capital system to separate the labourers from the means of production. This is, let's say, primitive accumulation. Can be in the past, again, can be in the past and nowadays. Okay, the separation. Then there is the second part that Harvey had to us is the recapture. No? It's the necessity to recapture part of income of the wage labourers. So through the credit system, so through the collapsing of mortgage in USA. They recapture, collapsing the value of assets for Latin Americans or immigrants. The 70% of their assets, they recapture part of the value that these people were receiving through the normal capitalist process. And this should be clear, no? That what is really important is always that the capital is doing this through an extra economic means. So through laws, through violence, robberies, as we know in the first part, then through laws, to implementing a certain kind of credit system. No? So the important part is extra economic means. Otherwise, if you have in an economic cycle, this is simple accumulation on expanded scale. Okay? You have accumulation when the process is a capitalist relation, economic relation, so the process of production and realization. And then you have accumulation by dispossession when you use extra economic means. Again, laws, policies. So in order to relaunch the capitalist relation to finding profitability. And this is bioprospecting, other rights, credit system, mortgage reform, and so on and so forth. So our complementary strategy is accumulation by contamination. This is our definition was related to the fact that it's a process by which the capital system socializes the cost. So it's different. It's not capturing value. It's not separating from your means of production. By shifting the cost, it's a successful cost shifting on different systems. Let's say Fisher system, for example, shipbreaking in the case of Federico, but also on, let's say, shifting the cost of pollution, because you start to be unhealthy and so you have to face with all the cost of, let's say, cancer in your family. No? It's a cost, a part of the, also the ethical and moral, a concrete cost for the family. So, which degrade the means of existence and bodies of human beings in order to find new possibilities for capital valorization. So waste dumping, air pollution, alteration of biochemical cycle, epidemic health problems. These are complementary strategy. So you have accumulation by dispossession as the umbrella, let's say, extra economic strategy, and then you have also a different layer, let's say, less hierarchical, because we invented this one, so there is hierarchy. And you have, at this layer, you have contamination, cost shifting. It's not separation, it's not recapturing value. So why waste? Because we think that there is waste generation management is one among several strategies to expand the scale and scope of capital accumulation, and is going to search new opportunities. And the ecological distribution conflict arises due to dynamic of societal metabolism. Just to give you an example, it's clearly that, for example, in Delhi, waste pickers and the petit bourgeois of Delhi is fighting against incineration for very different kind, responding to different kind of strategy. So waste pickers are clearly this is why I was saying we are not inventing nothing, because, for example, we use contamination because in neighbors and in the discourse of petit bourgeoisie of Delhi, we're saying we are against the contamination. We don't want to be live in a polluted area. We don't want that our body have health problems. So it was there. And and they were conflated. No one was responding to the separation of means of production, the waste pickers, clearly. No? They are against incineration because they can see that this separation from their means of production will collapse their level system. And then you have the petit bourgeois, but also all the majority of activists in Naples that are reacting to accumulation by contamination because there is no separation between means of production. Now, the reacting people in Naples are people reacting against contamination. So the very last two slides, capital accumulates expanding social metabolism in capitalist market through dispossession and contamination. It will be, let's say, the main theoretical contribution of this paper. Into social environmental conflicts. If there are less lazy people than us, please publish it, because it's now 2 years that we are speaking about this concept when we never publish it, but we have all the material there. It's incredible. So dispossession resulting into social environmental conflict, whose outcome determine an equal distribution of cost and benefit. And then relate to the actors and the way in which you should look at this is very last. So you have an act reacting to the separation, so reacting to the strategy of dispossession, can in some ways, who is the owner of the waste? No? Federico used to say this, no? It's answering this kind of question. And then actor reacting to the endangering of the means of resistance. So contamination is the owner of the sins.